Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Food Freedom with Becca and
Abby?
podcast.
Yeah.
Um, this week, we are lucky enough to be joined by the lovely Bethany. She's someone that we both followed on Instagram for quite a while, and I have appeared on her podcast, and we're now having a go at interviewing Bethany. So we will get more into that in a second. But as you all know, when we do our podcasts, we start with our three positives of the week. Abby, do you want to start? Or am I throwing you under the bus?
No, I'll start. So my first one is literally happened about 2 hours ago when I came back in from work. And my dog has like this toy sausage thing, like it's like a string of sausages. And she's managed to pull some of the fluffing out, but now she's literally just dragging the toy around with her everywhere. She's wagging her tail and she just looks so happy because she's just wrecked this toy.
Aww.
So that would be one of mine. My second one is that I got 5 workouts in last week, which I'm mightily proud of.
That's really good.
Um, and my third one is that today I am starting a 50-day challenge, and just to get back into habits, routines. It's not a fad diet type of thing, but I just want to get back into a happy, healthier me.
Nice.
Yeah.
My three positives are this weekend I saw my godparents and spent some time with them, which was really lovely. I've not seen them for a while. Um, I managed to take my dog on a few walks this week, which I haven't been able to do lately, so that's been really nice. And I finally got back into the habit of having 5 portions of fruit or veg every day. Like I went for a phase where I just wasn't doing it enough, and I'm back into it, and it's really good, and I'm really enjoying it. What would yours be, Beth?
Okay, my first one, I'm very inspired
Okay.
by your dog. I've got a little Labrador called Lola. So my first positive is her face after, I mean, you've probably seen it on my
The
Instagram story,
picture.
but yeah, we came home from the walk and I was taking my shoes off. Obviously, we're both covered in mud, and just the way she was looking at me, that
Oh,
would be my first positive. My second positive, and maybe just something I'm grateful for is my body. Just because I'm having a little bit of an eczema flare up right now. Not that you could see, but I'm having a little bit of a flare up right now. So I'm just grateful that I'm still happy and healthy and moving forward and just not letting anything hold me back, if you know what I mean. And I feel like my third positive is probably the glute workout that I had like 2 days ago.
are you still
Because
feeling it?
yes, definitely. But I honestly just like left the gym just so happy. Like, and
Oh,
you have those workouts and you were just like, I smashed that. The environment was amazing, absolutely buzzing. I literally felt like crying with happiness.
oh,
I
That's how
love
I felt.
those.
So I feel like that would be my third positive. It's just
oh, that's so
complete
nice.
workout.
Well, everyone's had very good positives this week, which is great. So jumping into the podcast, the reason we got you on here is obviously, for those that don't know, you've experienced binge eating in the past. And from that, you have since set up your own business, helping women to get past that and empowering other women to feel good in your body, regardless of what's going on, enjoying exercise in whatever form of exercise it is. Um, and we just wanted to ask you some questions and get some positivity and experiences from you that our listeners can hopefully take away from. So, do you want to
Absolutely.
introduce yourself a bit? I know I just kind of did, but
Well, yeah, exactly. My name is Bethany, and I've spent most of my life, I'm 26 years old now, and I have spent most of the years on this planet, as far back as I can remember, having what I'd probably describe as just an abnormal relationship with food. It never felt like anyone else's relationship with food. And obviously, sort of back when I was growing up, we had internet, but it wasn't really something that was as accessible and as widespread as it is today. So I felt sort of very isolated up until maybe the ages of like 18. I sort of joined the gym scene. And as we know about sort of disordered eating, it can often take many forms. Um, One is never like the other. So I sort of had binge eating episodes. I didn't realize it was at the time. Like before I even found the gym, before I even found exercise, I would often, wait for my parents to leave, or sort of I'd come home just before my parents would come home from work, and I'd just scour the cupboards. I'd eat things like I've commonly shared that I used to eat, like ice and sugar and things like it was never like normal chocolate bars.
Yeah.
On reflection, actually, we spoke to a nutritionist on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she was basically explaining that if you don't have access to things, if you grow up in a household where things like chocolate, crisps, sweet treats, you don't have access to them, you will find foods to sort of feed that need within you. So I was eating like binging on cornflakes, Weetabix, and just caking them in sugar just to get that sort of fix I was craving. Cooking chocolate, I'd melt down and literally just drink it. All sorts of chaotic things like that. And it was very secretive. It was always very panicked. I used to describe it as like a red haze just coming over, and I literally could not remember the previous hour or anything that I'd put into my body. And then I'd feel really guilty. This was sort of around the time where workout DVDs were like a big thing. And I assume like most moms had bought like Mr. Motivator, things like the Davina McCall, I think her name is, all of those. So I had access to those. So I was trying to do them. We got the Wii Fit, and I got on the board, and it instantly told me that I was borderline obese. So obviously that's damaging for like 12, 13-year-old me. So I remember just doing like the step workouts, like stepping on and off the board and things
really
like
addictive.
that. Yes, absolutely. But that's sort of like how I remember it starting. Then as I got a little bit older, I got my own money, got a car, things like that. Joined the gym because I was just like very inspired by the women of Gymshark at the time, like Whitney Simmons and women like that. Women I still love today, but I was just like, oh my God, these women are amazing. I really want to look like them. Let's start going to the gym. So I just started off as a cardio bunny, then eventually found weightlifting. And that was an amazing time. But then we downloaded like a calorie counting app and just sort of spiraled from there. So I got very obsessed with numbers. I got very obsessed with the gym. We are talking like 7 days a week, sometimes going a couple of times a day. We loved that place. But it, took it to the extreme. I love the gym, but you don't have to go that many times a day to see progress. And that's when sort of I was able to buy my own food to binge on. So I could literally walk into Tesco and have my pick, and I would spend so much money on just chocolate. And I've said this like quite a few times now, I wouldn't even make it out of the car park of Tesco. I'd like do my food shop and I wouldn't even survive like the 10-minute drive home. I'd literally just sit in the car and eat it. And I remember like binging whilst driving as well. And I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I don't think you're allowed to eat whilst driving, but I remember like demolishing a massive pack of fudge as I was driving home. So I spent like a couple of years like that. I don't know how I survived it, and it feels quite a blurry time.
But like you said, it's like an out of body experience, isn't it? Like the thing comes over you and you are not you anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. But at the time, I think I felt totally in control. I was just okay, right, we're going to binge Saturday till Sunday, then Monday till Friday, we'd really restrict. And that's my version of control. I've got this sorted. It's fine. And it was also sort of I'd get to the Sunday and sort of Monday morning, I'd be like, I'm never going to binge again. I feel so horrendous, feeling all these things physically and mentally, like all the negative repercussions. And I'd be like, I'm never going to do this again. Never ever. And then it would get to Thursday and I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling like, looking at my body, I'm feeling like physically really good now. Like I look amazing. I'd get to the Saturday and my brain would be like, you can actually afford a binge. Like with the amount of weight you've managed to lose this week, you can definitely afford a binge and you'll be completely fine. So I was just lying to
Mhm.
myself as well. Um, so yeah, like that's sort of like the start of my journey, but it just felt like it lasted such a long time. And I think it's just a shame on reflection that I had to endure that for such a long, because that was sort of the first maybe 22, 23 years of my life, which is sad.
It is. That's the thing, and it like, as you know, that's why we're all doing what we're doing to help people now, is so that people don't have to waste that time feeling awful. But one of the
Mm.
things you just said that I know me and Abby have spoken about before is control. Like,
Mm.
I don't know about you, but the two of us are very much people that we have to control every situation, and we're quite OCD in how we do things, and it's very like unrelated to food in our general days and lives. Are you also someone that's quite like that?
Yes, that is something I honestly wish my partner was here right now, because he would be able to preach that I was I am a control freak in some aspects, and I have had to like really tone it down. But there are just, if things weren't perfect, whether it could be any facet of life, it doesn't have to be about food. If things weren't perfect, even with like timings of
Mm-hmm.
things as
Yeah,
well, I would just have a complete meltdown.
I'm exactly the same. If I
Yeah.
like, my partner moans at me sometimes because he's like, I will get grumpy at him because in my head I've thought, right, we'll leave at 5 o'clock. I've not told him we're leaving at 5 o'clock, but in my head
Mm.
I'm like, we're leaving at 5. And it gets to 5 to 5 and he's still faffing around. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, what am I meant to be doing? And I'm like, we're leaving in 5 minutes. He's like, but you've not told me that. And then I get really stressed. But
Yeah.
I just think that when you're someone that wants to control every situation, knowing that it's so hard to control what happens in your body makes it so much harder. And I think definitely for me, that's something that triggered a lot of my food issues, is that you can eat stuff sometimes and or not eat, and your weight will still increase because that's how bodies work sometimes. But it's not in your control, and then it stresses you out more, and you try and control it more, and it just leads to like a really bad negative spiral.
Yeah, 100%. And I tell this funny story a lot actually, but when I was very much into weighing out my food and it had to be perfect to the gram, I'd have pre-calculated everything on like the calorie counting app and everything. So my day would be perfectly planned out. And one evening I made a meal. Feel like it might have been like a chili con carne or something. Everything was perfectly weighed out. And my partner came along and took a spoonful. Like he's such a, I'll taste a bit of what you're eating, like that, and he's still like that today. But he took a spoonful of my meal, and before I'd even like managed to get to him to be like, no, don't do that, he'd eaten it, and I was literally like, oh my god, I everything was perfect. You've ruined it, and like we had a massive bust up about it, and that just displays how I don't know, crazily different you can
Mm-hmm.
behave. And then that incident, sorry, then caused me to be like, oh my God, I haven't had, it was probably like 10 calories worth of food, but I was literally like, oh my God, everything's ruined now. I might as well just start binging now.
Yeah.
So even something as small as that could trigger it. Like that's how sensitive I was on reflection.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's even things like when I was in my worst stages, I can remember someone had like eaten, I don't know what it was, something tiny that I was going to use in a meal or something, and someone had eaten it. So I didn't have it in the house. So I was just like, actually, you know what? I still could have made the meal, but I didn't. And I was like, F it all. I'm just going to eat whatever I want in the house because it's all ruined. And it's ridiculous how much like your mindset can just go from zero to nothing and it just triggers it like that. It's insane.
Especially when it's like 1 gram of rice or something.
Mm.
Like you've said in your
Yeah.
head, I'm going to weigh out 75 grams and it's 76. And you're like, nope, can't have that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
100%. And I think it works the other way as well. Like if you were to eat one extra snack eating like an extra, I don't know, 50 calories of something would also send me into a meltdown, and I would really be fretting about it. So it was, whether it swung either way, I'd still have a meltdown.
Yeah.
So talking about your struggles then, what would you say is one of the hardest times you had when you were kind of binge eating?
I would probably say we had, I can't think like what sort of time of year it was, but we just moved into our house and we were doing like full scale renovation. We were painting everything. So it was a Saturday. I'd done the gym, I'd done the food shop, and I'd brought all this food home. And my partner had been upstairs all day working on whatever up here. So I'd been like left alone by myself downstairs, and I was trying to like paint the whole of the living room. And I'd do a little bit, then I'd go into the kitchen and I'd have something to eat. Then I'd come out. Food was literally on my brain like 24/7. So I couldn't even sort of like finish what I'd started before going back for some more. And that's basically just like how my day had gone. I kept going back to the kitchen, going back to the kitchen, going back to the kitchen. And by the evening, I was so painfully full. Like I remember just feeling it all up to my rib cage. I was so painfully full. And I was firstly just feeling so guilty. In my head, I was like, what have I done? Like, I can't believe I'd been like trying to fight it for a long time and trying to sort of like consciously increase food just to try and like fuel my body a little bit better. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done it again. And I was like feeling disgusting mentally, feeling disgusting physically. And my partner came downstairs and he was like, are you okay? And that's when I sort of like broke down and I actually just burst into tears in the middle of the living room to be like, actually, no, I'm not okay. I can't keep doing this. I feel horrendous. And he was like, don't worry, we've got this. We're going to fix this. Like, but I feel like when I reflect on like my sort of rock bottom of just feeling the worst and being so desperate to not do this anymore, I feel like that's probably the moment. It's full of tears.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. Do you think, because I'm curious from this as well. So when I've been in relationships, I've always hidden my disordered eating from them or tried to hide it. And when I have kind of explained it, they don't fully get it. Have you two found a similar thing?
I think so, but I do think I've also been really lucky in the fact that at the beginning, I sort of treated these binges as cheat days, like that's what I'd call them. And that's like a very accepted term in like the gym community. So I sort of shared that with him and he was like, oh, that makes sense, like blah, blah, blah. Because I think this is like the negative relationship with food that's like perpetuated throughout the whole of the media, just having like blowout days or like cheat days and things like that. So people don't look at it as abnormally. But even when I was having these sort of cheat days, I was hiding half the food that I was eating. And then it sort of like slowly came out, as in he'd like open the bin and he'd see wrappers in there and he'd be like, oh, have you eaten all of the cream eggs or something? And then I'd have to like ashamed and like admit, yeah, I have eaten them all. Or if I'd eaten all the cereal and things. So like living with him, it was harder to hide because obviously all the food was going missing. And then I'd start breaking down and be like, actually, I've eaten this, and this as well. I'm not feeling great about it. And I think he's always had like a really good relationship with food. So he's never suffered for a second. And I'm so happy for him.
Frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I don't think he fully understands, but I think when he sees me in this situation when I'm feeling like a complete mess, I think he's just very good in those situations to be like, give me the information and I'll try and understand it as best as I can so we can try and work through this together, I think.
In my response to your question, Abby, I've been in some bad relationships with guys that just haven't got it. Like my ex, he used to just eat what he wanted when he wanted, And when we started living together, he had a snack drawer next to the bed, and we would go to Tesco, fill it up, and every time by the next day it'd be gone. And he used to like encourage it and things, and I'd sit and feel guilty the next day, and he'd be like, oh, it's fine, like don't worry. And it's really hard, because then all week at work when I wasn't with him, I'd be like not really eating anything, because I'm thinking, well, we've got that snack cupboard and he's going to go and fill it up, and da 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 da. And it, like, who you live with and who your partner is makes such a difference to it. Because like as well, one of the things I was going to ask you, Bethany, is I know that when I was growing up, my mum was always on, and I love her and it's not her fault, but she was always doing like Weight Watchers and Slimming World. She always had those things out that I could see. She always was, let's be good Monday to Friday, and then we can have like a treat at the weekend and stuff. And I think that affected my relationship with food as I grew up. And I wondered if your family was similar when you were growing up.
Yeah, 100%. I don't talk about this very often, but I feel like because my mom's got no chance of listening to this podcast, I might as well share it here. But I had, like, to put it like nicely, I had like a very difficult relationship with my mom, but I know that she also had a very difficult relationship with her mom, and it's very much like generational trauma just being passed down. But yeah, in terms of like my mom's like diet, she's been on a diet her whole life. She's done the whole Weight Watchers Slimming World. She'd even like bring me and my sisters along to Slimming World for her weigh-ins, and like I don't blame her for that, because obviously someone's got to look after the children if dad's at work. So like I don't blame her for that, but just being brought up in that environment I don't think was helpful. But as I sort of got older, my mom would often like fat shame me and things like that. Like I never experienced bullying for my weight within school, but outside school my mom would do that bullying. And it was just often, if you're in an argument with someone and they haven't actually, like, you can tell that they're losing the argument, that's when she'd bring in okay, well, you're fat and disgusting. So, and it wouldn't just be those words, there would be many other words. She'd call me a whale, or like, she'd love to describe me with all these things. So growing up with that from a young age, I think, I feel like I got to a point where I couldn't even tell what my body looked like. Looking back on pictures, I was like, God, you were so tiny. You were literally a child, not even a woman at this point. You were a child, and already feeling like my body isn't nice, my body isn't valid, and things like that. So I definitely think that has contributed to sort of my journey. But like, even when I got into the gym and really got into weightlifting and got good at squatting and deadlifting and things like that, and I had beautiful quads. I don't quite have as much right now after sort of the pandemic and lockdown, but being described as like a sumo wrestler and things like that, just not kind comments that any young girl or like any woman actually should hear. But yeah, we've definitely received those sorts of comments, not off the rest of my family. Like, the rest of my family are wonderful. It's just sort of mom problems, but we're working through it.
I think though it is like a generational thing that, like we've said before, it's not our parents' fault that they were going to these things, because the media at the time was telling every woman that they had to be stick thin and they had to do these things, and I don't think any woman felt good enough. And like you said, obviously they have to bring their kids, because who's going to look after them when like dad's at work? But I think because they have so much pressure put on them, they don't realize how much it comes on to us. And then like, I know when I started going to the gym, my mum understands it now and she goes to the gym and she's doing things and loves it. But at the time it was very much, oh, don't go to the gym, you're going to look manly, you're going to look like this. And they don't, because they didn't have it and it wasn't a big thing then, they don't understand when you start doing it. And that makes it harder, because you think, oh my God, my mum or my parents don't agree with what I'm doing. Like, am I doing the right thing? And it adds more doubt to someone that's already doubting their choices.
Yeah, I think 100%.
I think that's an important thing to note as well, is that you were saying about the words and stuff. And I think for young girls and men out there, when you're already struggling to identify who you are, and then you're having all these words thrown at you, and it's so confusing, it's so hard to know what is real, what's not. And it's just, yeah, your mind is just complete boggle. So I was kind of just wondering, like, how you found happiness within yourself, and also like your relationship with food and the gym, and how you kind of got to where you are now, where you are in such a good relationship. And I love your page on Instagram because it's just such a positive place. And if ever I'm feeling down about myself, I will look on Instagram and just, yeah, your smiling face just helps.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much. But firstly, I moved out. Yeah, absolutely. Secondly, I shared my journey online. I don't think I was like 100% transparent, because I don't even think I knew at the time what I was going through. But I was just like, you know what? I found Abby on Instagram, and I'd seen her journey and like what she was describing as binge eating, and I was like, oh my God, I do that. That must be me. And I think for me, putting a name to it, putting a label on it, it was like so helpful. I was like, oh my God, firstly, I'm not crazy. Secondly, there's other people doing this, because I'd spent the majority of my life thinking that I was literally the only one, and that it was a me problem as well, not that it was something that was happening because of other things. I just thought, I'm not motivated enough and I'm not disciplined enough, and that's a me problem. So just becoming educated about it. I got a coach who sort of helped me eat more consistently, and sort of eat what I describe as like less processed foods, because at the time, yes, I was trying to up my calories and increase food, but I was still overtraining, and anything I was reaching for was like within a packet, like a cereal bar. And of course we love cereal bars, but the amount that I was eating them, there was no surprise that I was still feeling unsatisfied, and I was still feeling hungry and things like that. And obviously we also went into lockdown, so I think having the gym taken away from me, not being able to compensate in the way that I once was like, oh my God, like my one tool has been taken away from me. At this point, we were only allowed to like go outside once a day, so I was very much like living by that rule. And I was like, okay, if I can't fix it with exercise, I need to actually fix what I'm eating and like deal with the inner issues. So it took a lot of hard work. And I remember there was many days where I was just sort of sat at the kitchen table, almost like gripping it, being like, I just want to eat everything. Like I want to give up. Like, I don't give a crap about this journey. I don't care. I'm just going to give in. And that's sort of when my partner was like so supportive, and would just be like, look, if you want to binge in 10 minutes, go for it. But we're just going to go sit in the garden for 10 minutes, or we're going to go upstairs for 10 minutes and just like change your environment, calm you down. Yeah. And even just having like 10 minutes to just breathe, I think can be so helpful. So that's sort of how I started. I honestly I think maybe a year after, I was still figuring out my relationship with food. I'd sort of gone from restricting and binging to not binging, but still probably not eating as balanced as I should have been. I probably wasn't as inclusive of the things that I love, like chocolate and meals out and things like that. Then I sort of felt really empowered and confident, and I was like, you know what, I can eat whatever I want to. So that consisted of maybe a couple of weeks of us literally having takeaways for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We'd be like McDonald's breakfast, then we'd go to KFC for lunch, and then like I have a Pizza Hut for dinner. And it wasn't in a negative way of like binging. It's like a screw you to whatever disordered eating I had, to be like, I've got this, I can do whatever I want to, blah blah. And even though it probably wasn't very healthy for me, it was a really positive time and just like another learning curve. And then I was like, okay, this is making me feel really good mentally, but physically, my body isn't feeling good. So then I had to sort of swing back around and be like, okay, let's have another look at what we're eating and how we can sort of make this more balanced, because you can go one end, but you can also go off at the other end as well. And I just think it's all about trial and error and just learning what works for both your mind and your body.
Mm-hmm. I think that's such a key point. Like you said, I know we wouldn't recommend people having 3 takeaways in a day because in the long term it's not healthy. But at the same time, like that was good for you mentally at that point.
Yeah.
And therefore it is healthy because it's good for you mentally.
Yeah.
And people forget that. They think that healthy food should just be things that's full of vitamins and minerals and all the things. But sometimes healthy food is things that make you happy.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not like smooth sailing, and like no sort of recovery journey is going to be perfect. And I don't think it was necessarily beneficial for my body, but I absolutely don't regret it at the same time. And I think that when these sort of journeys are portrayed online, it's very much, I did this, got to this, and now I'm at food freedom. And often the path is not like that. It's like
you forget all
a
the
roller coaster. Yeah.
So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was obviously your relationship with exercise. So you said that you did go to the gym 7 times a week, sometimes more than once. Your relationship is very different now, and you've had a lot of different forms of exercise. So how would you describe your relationship with exercise now?
I describe it as just so much frigging fun. Oh my God. Like, I just love it. I definitely feel like, after we came out of lockdown, a lot of people just went straight back into their gym routines. And I tried and I just couldn't stay consistent. And I was just like, this is strange. I've never struggled with consistency at the gym before. And I was like, okay, I think when sometimes you put too much pressure on yourself to do something, it often has negative repercussions of you don't go to the gym at all. So I was like, okay, take a little bit of a break. Started walking and things like that. Because I like to, when we start positive habits, let's start small, all about the baby steps. And then we bought a Switch, the thing's called the Nintendo Switch. And it came in like a set, and within the set was a game called Ring Fit. And my partner was just like, because I'd like started coaching at this stage, or like thinking about coaching, so I knew I was going to be spending quite a bit of time at home. And he was like, you know what, just to like break up your day and to get you moving a little bit, in case like you don't want to go outside, or just like for a bit of fun, like to have like a little fun challenge, you can try this. And actually I really loved it, and I was like, oh my God, like this is a valid form of exercise, which is something I sort of struggled with a little bit before, because I'd gone from being a cardio bunny to being told, don't do too much cardio, you need to lift weights. So I think that maybe skewed my perception of cardio a little bit, to be like, oh, cardio is a waste of time. When I sort of realized, or if I'm walking Lola, my dog, and climbing up a hill, like I don't want to be out of breath by the time I get to the top of it. I was like, oh my God, weightlifting isn't everything. So I started this game and literally had so much fun. I still play it to this day. But then we got more games like Just Dance, and I've never been a dancer, but boy, do I love Just Dance. And it's literally just like finding things like that has been so much fun. When the weather was nicer, I was like skipping outside and just having like a whole mix of exercises, and just making it as fun as possible helped me sort of get excited about movement again. Because I definitely think the pandemic sort of impacted my relationship with exercise, but I also think finding food freedom impacted my exercises like impacted my relationship with exercise as well. So I was not having to sort of find my love for food again, but also find my love for exercise. So yeah, literally like every day we're doing something different now, and I absolutely love it. I bought a hula hoop for Christmas. And I've started hula hooping now, and I'm actually really good at it.
Ah, I think it shows though that where your mindset is at also makes a difference, because if you compare like the Nintendo Wii to the Switch, they're very similar in that they were brought out to promote exercise and activity in one way. But at that time, seeing them say to you that you were whatever it was, nearly obese or whatever, affects you more. Whereas you can play this game and be completely fine.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also not caring about like calories burned either. I sort of had to repair my relationship with my Apple Watch because I was just so obsessed with every single number. And like before, I wouldn't let myself leave the gym till I'd hit a certain number. And I've actually like on days I'd like forgot my Apple Watch, because some days it's that early in the morning, you forget to put it on. I literally couldn't work out. How crazy is that?
No,
Mental, isn't it?
I get that though. I used to be like, oh, well, if it's not tracked, it's not a workout. It doesn't count. There's no point. And you're like, that's so silly.
My mum says that. She's like, I've been for a walk with the dog, but I forgot to wear my Fitbit. So now I've got to do the steps again. And I'm like, Mum, you did the steps.
No, absolutely. That was me.
But yeah, I think that's so interesting. I've had another question as well. So I don't know this answer, so I'm very curious to find out. How did you get into coaching and starting your business and all that stuff?
I decided to take the leap into coaching. Actually, it starts like really sadly. I'd been at like a previous company for like, God, I'm trying to think how many years, from like the age of 16. It was like working in electronics and things like that. And I was never like happy there, but I was also grateful that it afforded me the opportunities of going on holidays and buying a house and things like that. Very close to home, very easy, didn't have to think much. And then my manager actually passed away. Like, yeah, it was like really sad. And it just sort of changed the atmosphere of the workplace. And it changed people as well. And I don't know, everyone just got really, it was sometimes like a hard environment to work in a lot of the time anyway, because I was very young and most of the people who worked there were very old. So there was a lot of clashing of opinions in terms of, anything from diet to politics to whatever. I literally sat next to a woman who would have a pack of Quavers for lunch, and that was it. So like, very toxic environment, crazy. And then when this sort of happened, it sort of made me realize, oh my God, life is too short. I was a very anxious person, and I feel like this past 12 months, like we've done a complete 180 in terms of my personality and confidence. But that was sort of what gave me the push to be like, can I do this? I don't know. Like I'd been approached before, like 1 or 2 years prior, and I was like, absolutely not, definitely not. I can't do that. I can't talk to people. I can't look after people, blah, blah, blah. And then that sort of happened. And then like a week later, I got a message on Instagram of like a job offer. And at first I was just like, no, whatever. And then we'd sort of come back into the workplace and everyone was just at each other's throats. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be around any of you guys anymore. So I was like, right, I'm either going to find another job doing whatever. I wasn't really fussed, or I can look into coaching. And this company agreed to like pay for all my qualifications and training. And I was sort of like probably like what you'd call an apprentice, but like an unofficial one. So the next sort of 6 months, I spent doing that behind the scenes, didn't tell a soul apart from my boyfriend, the fiance, sorry. And that's sort of what gave me the gumption and the push to leave in December of, I was going to say last year, but it was 2021. I left my job and went into this. That company didn't last very long. And then I was just like, you know what, I can either go straight back into a similar workplace to what I was with before, but I was like, you know what, I just don't think my mental health can.
No.
And we'd also got a puppy as well, Lola. And I was just, you know what, I would rather stay at home with my dog and just live this sort of lifestyle, if you know what I mean, and just be able to, create fun content and also help people at the same time. So that was sort of my starting story. It took a lot of gumption and confidence to be like, right, we're going to do this, but absolutely worth it. And I just sort of, on reflection, I wish I'd done it sooner.
It's so scary to start though. So scary.
Yeah.
Knowing that you've got
100%.
other people's like lives and habits and mental health and stuff in your hands is a really big thing.
Yes, 100%. And I think if I hadn't have sort of gone sort of within a group that was like very supported, I don't know whether I'd have taken the leap by myself, like straight off. I think I appreciated the support, not being by myself and things like that before I actually developed this confidence. So yeah, that's confident Beth now.
And while we're talking about your business, you want to just say your podcast and your Instagram and stuff for people that do want to follow you or find you?
Yes. So my Instagram page is Bethany Leah with 2 underscores. I couldn't get the 1 underscore because someone else had taken it. Obviously, there's another Bethany Leah out there. And the podcast is Rewrite the Rules, and that is at Rewrite the Rules on Instagram as well. And we chat about very similar things, really, all things food freedom, body positivity, body neutrality, having positive relationships with exercise, trying to keep it seasonal with like Christmas, Easter, everything. It's the 3 of us, me, Natalie and Harriet, just sharing our story, but also trying to help as many people as possible on their journeys as well. So,
and it's a great podcast, I recommend.
I was going to say, I'd recommend too. I listen to it when I go for my walks.
No, I love that. Thank you so much. I listen to yours actually not normally as I walk, it's normally when I'm making breakfast actually.
Oh,
I have
breakfast talk.
have something going. I can't just do one thing. I have to have some like a noise on or something. So yeah, you're my breakfast girls.
I love that.
Oh, and I think we're going to have to round up there. But thank you so much for coming on. Like, it has been so interesting having you. And I don't know about you, Abby, but I've still got questions I want to ask you. So we're probably going to have to do another episode.
I'm here for a part 2. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I've loved speaking to you both.
So.
Great. Well, for everyone else, we will catch up with you on next week's episode. Remember to do your positives of the week. It's what's going to help you feel more positive and happy, and just notice the little things that you're doing that make it worth it.
Yes, get those endorphins going.
Yes. So we'll catch up with you later. Bye.
Bye.